Some moments in life feel like they belong to you, and then suddenly, someone tries to take them away. Graduation day should have been the proudest moment of my life. Every late night, every sacrifice, every exam I stayed up studying for led to this one shining moment. I imagined walking across the stage, my heart pounding, applause echoing in my ears, my mother smiling proudly from the front row. But the moment I stepped forward to receive my degree, everything changed. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 22 years old. For as long as I can remember, my father had one way of seeing me. A shadow of his own ego. Not someone capable of independent achievement. Not someone worthy of pride. He had spent my entire childhood making sure I believed I was always the problem. I remember the applause swelling as my name was called. I felt my chest tighten with excitement, my hands slightly shaking. This was my victory, my moment, the culmination of years of hard work. And then I saw him, sitting smugly in the back row. My father smiled. Not proud, smug, as if every ounce of my effort belonged to him. When I walked up to the stage, he stood and declared in front of everyone, loud and clear, "Thank you. My son wouldn't have done this without my guidance." The room froze. Classmates whispered. Cameras zoomed. Professors blinked in disbelief. I felt my face flush with anger and shock. This was my life, my hard work, and he just tried to take it. For a second, I couldn't speak. Words seemed useless against his arrogance. My mother's eyes widened in horror. My sister shifted uncomfortably. Even the security guard at the side seemed confused. And then, a calm determination took over, because while he had claimed credit for my degree, he hadn't counted on me knowing my worth. I took a deep breath. Every eye in the auditorium was on me now. My voice rang clear. "I earned this, not you, sir." The security officer tensed. Heads turned, cameras focused, and my father's face, it changed. The smug smirk vanished. The arrogance crumbled in front of everyone he had tried to impress. That one sentence didn't just restore my achievement. It reminded everyone in the room and myself who I really was. I was Ethan Miller. Not his shadow, not his puppet, not the problem child he had always made me feel I was. I was a young man who had worked, fought, and earned every single thing for himself. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. I shook hands, accepted my degree, and left the stage with my head held high. Every step was a declaration. I would never let someone else take my glory again. That day taught me something crucial. No matter how much someone tries to define you, no matter how long they've belittled you, the truth of your hard work and worth cannot be stolen. Years of being labeled, underestimated, and blamed had built a fire inside me, and that fire, it would drive everything I did from that day forward. I smiled at my mother in the front row. She nodded, tears in her eyes. She understood. The man who had tried to steal my moment? He learned, in front of everyone, that I was more than his shadow. I was my own person, and that was only the beginning. The second I spoke those 7 words, "I earned this, not you, sir," the auditorium went silent. Everyone stared at my father. His face, once confident and smug, drained of color. He sat back down quickly, muttering under his breath, as if hoping no one had heard him, but the damage was done. I walked off the stage, clutching my diploma. My legs felt heavy, my chest still racing. I couldn't believe I had finally stood up to him. Not with anger, not with shouting, just with the truth. And yet, a strange tension settled over the room. It wasn't just the shock on his face, or the whispers from the crowd. It was knowing that my father had lost control over me, over my image, over my achievement. At the reception afterward, my classmates came up to congratulate me. They smiled, clapped. Some even joked about how my father tried to claim credit. I nodded politely, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept catching glimpses of him across the room. His eyes darted toward me, then quickly looked away. My father, The man who had spent decades trying to control me suddenly seemed small, vulnerable, unsure. I realized something powerful at that moment. For 22 years, he had defined me by his fear, his insecurity, his ego. Every insult, every judgment, every comparison he had made, it had been about him, not me. Now, those 7 words had flipped the script. Later that evening, after everyone had left, I went home. My mother sat quietly in the living room. She looked at me with a mix of pride and worry. "You were incredible today, Ethan," she whispered. I smiled faintly. It wasn't just about being incredible. It was about making sure the truth was seen. She nodded slowly. "I know. He'll be furious later, but he can't take it back now." And she was right. That night, my father didn't speak to me. Not a word. He just stared at the floor, his pride wounded, his authority stripped. It was the first time in my life I had seen him powerless. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle changes. Teachers who once gave him credit for my ideas began praising me openly. My classmates treated me with a newfound respect. Even family friends, who had silently supported his claims, seemed unsure of what to say when they complimented me. But the most important change was inside me. I realized that for the first time, I wasn't just fighting against him. I was proving to myself that I could take control of my own life, my own narrative, and my own worth. A week later, my father finally approached me. His face was red, his hands slightly trembling. "Ethan," he said carefully, "about graduation." I looked at him, steady, calm, unafraid. "Yes?" I prompted. I didn't mean to." I raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "No, you did mean it. And you did it in front of everyone. I don't need your apology. I just need you to understand something." I took a deep breath. "I am not your shadow. I am not your extension. I am Ethan Miller. I earned this degree. Every single bit of it is mine." He nodded slowly, almost as if he were learning what I had known for years. "Yes," he said quietly. I see that now." I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just nodded, turned, and walked away. Because that day, graduation day, wasn't just about a diploma. It was about finally stepping out of the shadow of a man who spent decades trying to define me. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. No one would ever steal my achievements again. Not my father, not my sister, not anyone. I was done being underestimated. The real journey, I knew, was only beginning. Because the moment you stand up for yourself, life has a way of testing whether you can hold on to that strength. After graduation, life felt different. The auditorium drama was over. My 7 words had exposed him. And yet, the shadow of my father's ego still lingered in my mind. It wasn't gone, it never really is, but something inside me had changed. For the first time, I realized that my life didn't have to revolve around him. That I didn't need his approval, his credit, or his validation to succeed. I was Ethan Miller, and I had earned everything on my own. I moved out of the house shortly after graduation. My father didn't try to stop me. He didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't attempt to convince me to stay. He had lost that power over me. It was strange, a mix of liberation and fear. I had no savings, no solid plan, no support system other than my mother, who quietly cheered me on from a distance. But I had determination, and for me, that was enough. I got a job at a small bookstore during the day, stocking shelves, organizing inventory, helping customers. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't high-paying, but it was honest work. And for the first time, I was building something entirely my own. At night, I took up a part-time gig at a cafe, cleaning tables, washing dishes, and staying late after closing. The work was exhausting, but I didn't mind. Every paycheck I earned was proof that I could survive and thrive without him. Some nights, I would sit in my small apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the years I had spent living under his shadow. Every insult, every belittlement, every claim that I was the problem replayed in my mind. And yet, instead of pain, I felt determination. Because I had finally learned a truth that no one could take away from me. My worth wasn't defined by anyone else's opinion. Not my father's, not my sister's, not even society's. I was capable. I was strong. I was deserving of respect. Months passed. I started taking night classes to further my education, learning things I had always wanted to, but never had the chance to explore because he had dictated my life. It was challenging. There were moments when exhaustion almost defeated me, when bills piled up, and I wondered if I could keep going. But I did. Every obstacle made me stronger. Every failure taught me resilience. During this time, I avoided my father. Not out of anger, though there was plenty, but because I needed space to grow, to find myself without him looming over me. I built friendships, formed mentorships, and slowly carved out a life that was mine. And then, one day, I received a call that would change everything. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Ethan," said a voice I hadn't heard in years. Calm, measured. It was my father. My first instinct was to hang up, but something told me to listen. "You've changed," he said quietly. "I see it. I know I failed you." I paused. I didn't respond immediately. This was the same man who had spent decades trying to control me, belittle me, and claim my achievements as his own. And yet, there was something different in his tone. Something almost regretful. I knew then that life was about to test me in a way I hadn't anticipated. Because standing up to him on stage had been one thing, but facing him now, in a world where I had nothing to prove and everything to lose, would be a different kind of battle. That night, I lay in my small apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the path I had chosen. I realized that my journey wasn't just about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right. And with that thought, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let anyone, especially him, dictate my worth ever again. The real work had just begun. The weeks after that phone call from my father were filled with tension I couldn't ignore. I kept replaying his words in my head. "I see it. I know I failed you." Failed me? That was an understatement. He hadn't just failed me, he had spent my entire childhood trying to define me as less than I was. And now, after all these years, he was suddenly acknowledging it. I decided to meet him. Not because I wanted his approval, not because I was seeking validation, but because I needed closure. I arranged to meet at a small cafe near my old neighborhood, the kind of place that smelled faintly of coffee and fresh bread. I arrived early, my hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but anticipation. When he walked in, I barely recognized him. The man who had once seemed larger than life, powerful and unshakable, now looked smaller, almost fragile. His posture was cautious, and his eyes, once full of dominance, now held something unfamiliar, regret. We sat across from each other in silence. Neither of us knew where to start. Finally, he spoke. "Ethan, I know I can't change the past," he said, voice low. "But I need you to understand that I never wanted to hurt you." I stared at him, taking in every word, every expression. My father, the man who had called me the problem child for 22 years, was sitting here admitting fault. I wanted to say something sharp, something that would make him feel the pain he had caused. But instead, I stayed quiet. I had nothing to prove anymore. He continued, "I was proud of you, even if I didn't show it. And I was scared. Scared of losing control. Scared of my own failures. So I pushed them onto you." I felt a strange mix of anger and pity. Years of blame, humiliation, and neglect. And yet here he was, vulnerable, confessing everything. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, it was understanding. Then he leaned closer and handed me a small envelope. "It's everything I have," he said. "Records, documents, letters, things about your mother, about us. I think you deserve to know the truth." I took the envelope carefully. My fingers shook slightly. For the first time, I realized that part of my life had been missing not just recognition, not just validation, but answers. I spent hours going through the contents, letters I had never seen, documents that explained things my father and mother had never told me. And somewhere in those papers, I found clarity. The DNA tests, the timelines, The proofs, they all told the same story. I was not defined by the man who raised me. I was my own person. And the man who had tried to claim my life as his own had nothing to do with my worth. The next few weeks were strange. My father tried to reconnect cautiously. He invited me to meetings, events, even casual lunches. And for the first time, I wasn't defensive. I wasn't angry. I listened. I observed. I measured my boundaries carefully, and slowly, a new dynamic formed. He was no longer my oppressor. He was a man who had failed, who had hurt me, who had tried to take my glory. But he was also a man willing to admit his mistakes. I began building a bridge, not for him, but for me. Because part of moving forward wasn't revenge. It wasn't proving him wrong. It was proving to myself that I could embrace the truth, accept the past, and continue growing. I worked harder than ever. I excelled at my new job, invested in my future, and kept learning. Every step I took was proof to myself that the label he had given me, the problem child, was meaningless. I was Ethan Miller, strong, capable, and unstoppable. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this. Confronting the past didn't make me weak. It made me whole. I had faced the man who tried to define me. I had uncovered the truth. And now, for the first time in my life, I felt free. But life, as I had learned, has a way of testing you even when you think the worst is behind you. Because just when I thought I had closure, an unexpected event reminded me that the past doesn't just disappear. It had been months since I last saw my father face to face. After confronting him at the cafe, after reading the letters and documents he finally gave me, life had started to feel lighter. I had rebuilt myself, step by step. I had a stable job, a small apartment that felt like mine, and for the first time, I could look in the mirror without carrying the weight of his judgment. But that phone call changed everything. "Ethan, we need to talk," he said, voice trembling. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I had prepared myself for a lot of things, but I didn't know what this call would bring. "I'm listening," I said cautiously. He hesitated, then admitted, "I'm sick, seriously, and I don't have much time left. There are things you need to know about our family, about your mother, and about you." I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to rush to him. Instead, I agreed to meet. The next day, I drove to his house, the same place where I had spent years feeling unseen. The building looked smaller than I remembered, worn down by time. He opened the door, his eyes red from worry or maybe regret. "Sit down, Ethan," he said quietly. "I want to tell you everything, and I want you to hear it from me first." I listened as he revealed things I had only guessed at. The struggles he faced, the mistakes he made, the pressure that had twisted him into someone cruel. But it wasn't excuses. It was truth, raw, painful, and honest. I realized something important while listening. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about me, about finally understanding the pieces of my life that had been missing. Then came the part I had been waiting for. He handed me a folder. Inside were documents proving what I had always suspected. I had been right all along. My achievements, my potential, my independence, he could never take them from me. "I know I failed you," he said, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I cannot undo the past, but I want to be part of your future if you'll allow it." I paused. My mind flashed through decades of hurt, neglect, and manipulation. But I didn't need closure from him. I didn't need validation. I had built my life without it. Instead, I said calmly, "You don't get to define me anymore. You lost that right a long time ago." He nodded, accepting it. "I understand." And just like that, I realized something freeing. The power he thought he had over me was gone. Forever. I left the house feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I didn't carry anger, resentment, or fear. I had taken my life back. In the months that followed, I focused entirely on my future. Career opportunities, new experiences, friendships, and personal growth. Every achievement, every milestone, every victory was mine and mine alone. I was no longer the problem child. I was Ethan Miller, a man who had fought through years of lies, neglect, and manipulation, and had emerged victorious. And while my father may never fully redeem himself, that didn't matter anymore. I had discovered the ultimate truth. My worth was never tied to his opinion. I had learned something everyone should know. No one can steal your identity. No one can erase your effort. No one can define your life but you. Walking through the city streets one evening, I paused, looking up at the skyline. The lights shimmered like promises. I smiled, finally free. I had a past, yes, full of struggle and pain, but it no longer controlled me. I had taken back my life, my achievements, and my pride. And that was everything.